Shafere. Who's it? Welcome to another episode of iDiski Waya Waya, where we're talking all things South African football. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you subscribe, you like, you comment, and you share. And thank you so much to everybody who've been supporting us. We see the love. And a big shout out to Ekaya Classic Records for helping us with sound quality and sound production. So if you want anything that's got to do with sound production, anything that's got to do with sound, please make sure that you contact Ekaya Classic Record at ekayaclassicrecord@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an amazing time in South African football. And apologies that last week we didn't have an episode. We had some issues that we've managed now with the CEC Lungise. So let's get straight into it and just talk about what's happening. I mean, it's been a beautiful time in the South African football. We had the Nedbank Cup. Things happened in the Nedbank Cup. We had some Betway Premiership games as well. But also, most importantly, we had some surprises on the CAF Confederation Cup and the CAF Champions League. So that's what we're going to be talking about more there. But Buffett, we're always looking at the big three in South African football, which is Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates, and Mamelodi Sundowns. And that's what we're going to be looking at. As we know that Kaizer Chiefs is playing the CAF Confederation Cup, and then Mamelodi Sundowns also playing with CAF Champions League. Pirates is fighting for Betway Premiership. They are on top of the league. They want to win Betway Premiership. So we're going to look at that. But before we can look at that, let's just check out. As you can know that there are games that are happening this week. So we're just going to give you a bit of predictions of the games just before we can get straight into what we're going to be talking about in this episode. So Durban City will be at TX Galaxy. It's going to be a very interesting game. And when you're looking at the Durban City and you're looking at the TX Galaxy, these are teams that are trying to make sure that they get there so that they can at least get to top 8, or at least for especially Durban City, they're trying to make sure that they fight for relegation zone. So in that game, for me, I'm looking at the 0-0 draw. I don't see much of these two teams scoring against each other. So I'm looking at the 0-0 draw, TX Galaxy, Durban City. And then we've got Imakes up against Golden Arrows. Golden Arrows is on fire. They even won the Nedbank Cup 3-0. So I'm really looking at Golden Arrows. I think Golden Arrows is going to win that game. I would like to say 2-0. I saw Imakes playing up against Orlando Pirates. It's not make sure. So I'm going to give Golden Arrows a straight win there. I'm going to say 2-0 Golden Arrows up against Makesi. And then we've got the Orlando Pirates up against the Malumo Gallants. Pirates idlala kweSikaMamenzela bafethe Orlando Arena Stadium. And the Pirates is really fighting to make sure that they get their phezulu njengamapoint amaningi. So in that game, I don't really think... I mean, it's going to be game Makubu firstly because Orlando Pirates is Malumo Gallants we cutting knockout final, and also that Uwatu was a coach Malumo Gallants last season, so it will be one of those games. But I don't see Malumo Gallants giving Pirates ubunzima, especially Pirates madlala ekhaya. So I see Pirates winning that game. I will say 2-0. And then we've got people on it as well. Another interesting game that might end up with a draw. I like to say 0-0 draw. And then we've got Chippa United up against Richards Bay. Another game that is not making sure. But I just see Richards Bay taking that game, gripping that game. It's going to be very difficult because it's playing away from home. So Chippa United is playing Ekaya. So looking at it, I think Richards Bay can win 1-0, or maybe they might get a draw. Sekhukhune up against Opitz College. Definitely, that's a game that Sekhukhune really need to make sure that they come back and they come back to their winning ways. So I see Sekhukhune winning that game 1-0 up against Opitz College. And then we've got CAF Confederations Cup and CAF Champions League. So those are the things that I want to talk about, right? But before we get into that, so Kaizer Chiefs lost to Stellenbosch in the Nedbank Cup. They lost 2-1. So the defending champions of Nedbank Cup are out. Last 32 Bapumile, which is an interesting thing now because it means basically Nedbank Cup doesn't have a champion anymore. So it means we're going to see a new champion here at Nedbank Cup. It's a game that I'd like to go deeper into it in Kulumengayo in Nedbank Cup. If Kaizer Chiefs near Stellenbosch. A game that I think he might a lot of Orlando Pirates Kaizer Chiefs fans already said they don't see Chiefs winning there because they were very defensive. And obviously, Chiefs is going through an era where they are not getting time to train because they've got back-to-back games. They have to travel back-to-back. I mean, they travel to Durban and then they have to come back to, they have to go to Cape Town. After Cape Town, they go to Egypt. After Egypt, they go to Zambia because they're playing CAF Confederations Cup in between Betway Premiership and the Nedbank Cup. So you could see in that game where they had a lot of changes. They literally changed, I think, like 5 people, five players that usually in the lineup, they had to do changes. And we also saw a returning of Umsimangu, which is something that was interesting for a lot of Kaizer Chiefs fans because he hasn't played for a very long time. So he was back which was something that I think was a big flop from the Kaizer Chiefs coaches because Quinika has been an outstanding defender, and for me, I think he's one of the people that I can put there as defender of the season. So he's definitely gonna be part of the people that will be fighting for it defender of the season. So having a player like Quinika in a very important match, because a match where you are the defending champion of this tournament. So you definitely need to make sure that you win. At least to get out to quarter final or semi-final, but to be knocked out to last 32. It's not a good thing, but also you also get to understand that Kaizer Chiefs do need to do a squad rotation because firstly there's a lot of fatigue that is happening. They don't get to train a lot because they're mostly on the road. So I think it was just a matter of that because also they had a game that was very important in the weekend against Al Masar, which was a game, a CAF Confederations Cup, which was a must-win game because they needed to win that game so that at least our chances of qualifying to the knockout stages with CAF Confederations Cup can be a bit high. Which is what happened. So they lost 2-1 to Stellenbosch, which was also a moment where they broke a record considered because they haven't considered in 4 games. So this was the first game where they considered 2 goals and then they lost in that game. And then they went out to play Al Masar. Peter Mokaba Stadium, a new Peter Mokaba Stadium on Sunday. That was a game where they really needed to get a win because it was either they win or if they lose that game, they're going to be out of the Confederations Cup. And because in the first leg, Egypt, they lost 2-1, so they needed to win 1-0 so they can qualify because the Exosevenza goal head-to-head score. So they needed to win at least 1-0 or at least 3-1 if the Al Masari Akor. But then they won 2-1, which basically means head-to-head, Al Masari and Kaizer Chiefs by Afana, and they had the same point at that time when they were playing. So now Chiefs won 2-1, so which means now they are in 10 points. And then interesting thing is Zamalek lost to Zesco United 1-0. So which means then Zamalek is on 8 points. Al Masar is on 7 points. So Chiefs is going to be playing Zamalek in the last match of the CAF Confederations Cup on Saturday, and they're going to Egypt. Remember, the first round here in South Africa was 2-2. You remember there was a time where Dylan Solomon scored that last goal where everybody was thinking with a Chiefs Sidley, and then he came back and then scored that last goal. You are 2-2 against Zamalek. So now this is what's going to happen. I'm going to talk about this thing so that everyone can understand. So Chiefs need to get at least a draw against Zamalek because right now they're on top of the log. They're on 10 they have 10 points. Zamalek is number 2 with 8 points. Al Masar is number 3 with 7 points. Zesco United qualify. But then Zesco United is playing up against Al Masari and Egypt. So it means Al Masari is playing at home. So if Al Masari wins, it means they're gonna go straight to 10 points. So then Chiefs just need to get at least a point. If they get a point, that means they're gonna be 11 points, which is gonna make them number 1, but topic group 11 points, and then they go straight to knockout. If they win, even worse. If they win, that's gonna be even interesting because it basically means they're gonna be on 13 points, which going to mean that they're gonna top the group and go to the knockout. But then if it happens that Chiefs lose and then Al Masari wins, then that basically means they will be on 10 points, right? Al Masari, and then Chiefs will be on 10 points. Obviously, then Zamalek will be on. Then Zamalek will be on 11 points, which means they'll top the group and go out straight. And then now what we're going to be looking at is that Al Masari and Chiefs, then they'll look at the goal difference. At the moment, Chiefs is better in the goal difference because they're in +2. But then, depending on the score that Al Masari win, if Al Masari get to beat Isesco United, let's say 2-0, that means they will go all the way. That means Al Masari will go all the way. But if they get to win, 1-0, that depending on the Chiefs, ukuthi lose ngobani. Mhlawumbe Chiefs na may lose ngo 1-0 kwi-Zamalek, then that means Chiefs can be able to go to the knockout stages. So a Saturday game is going to be a very interesting game for Kaizer Chiefs. It's a must-win. It's a final, basically, because they need to make sure that they win that game. But also, if they don't win it, at least they must get a draw. So I think it's good because it's in their hands. And yeah, during the two games against Stellenbosch, Nedbank Cup, and then against Al Masari, we Kent Conditions Cup, there are a lot of things that a lot of people are talking about. Like, for example, Tutuzi Shabalala, we know that Tutuzi Shabalala has missed a lot of chances, and people are starting to think maybe Tutuzi Shabalala needs to be given a rest. And then, but also there's also a thing about Msimango, where two games that he started, Chiefs considered, whereas before he came through, the Chiefs didn't consider any goal. So that's also a question, because on the game against Al Masari, he literally did a blunder for Al Masari to score that goal. So it's just a beautiful interaction and a beautiful debate that's been running around on social media. And I'm actually interested in finding out on you, what do you think, what do you think? Firstly, what do you think about Kaizer Chiefs? Also, looking at the performance of Kaizer Chiefs, I mean, it is visible to everyone that they are not playing good football. They are not really playing a very interesting football. Their football is not interesting. It's really not. They are not really doing anything beautiful in terms of like playing football. But they are winning games. And co-coach Ben Youssef did say that, and Cedric Case as well did say at some point, he would say this is not about them playing pretty football, but it's all about getting a result, because right now they are under pressure whereby they don't get to train. Like, they train once because they need to travel, they need to do all those things, and then there's players fatigue. So they are not really getting time to really create formation and all those things. So right now they're just wanting to create result and then see themselves going as far as they can. So right now they're out of the Nedbank Cup, so it means now they're looking for Cat Confederations Cup and Betway Premiership. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen in the few weeks of these things. I think the first decider whether they're going to continue to catch Confederations Cup or they're not, it's on this Saturday against Zamalek. That's a decider. If they win that one, it means their chances, they still have chances to win something before the end of the season. But yeah, if they lose, it means they all have to a Premiership, which is also not promising because they're number 3 and Pirates is number 1 with so Pirates is above them 5 points. So we don't know what's going to happen. But tell us what you think. What do you think about Kaizer Chiefs? Do you think they'll go all the way and win and get to win Confederations Cup? What's your take on that? And what do you think about them on the against Zamalek this weekend? Drop the comment there. Please make sure that you drop your comment. Let's engage. Let's talk about it. And yeah, then again, another interesting thing is the Mamelodi Sundowns. So Mamelodi Sundowns got a draw up against ST Lupopo in Lubumbashi in DRC this weekend. So now that basically means Sundowns have a game it's a must-win game against MC Alger, which MC Alger is from Algeria. It is coached by previous coach of Mamelodi Sundowns, Orulani Mukwena. So it's going to be an interesting thing because MC Alger is coming to South Africa. They're going to be playing at Loftus Versfeld Stadium. And the interesting thing now is that, first of all, Rulani Mukwena is his chance or his opportunity to pay revenge to Sundowns, especially in Hambengayo, but also prove himself that he's one of the best coaches that we have in Africa. So this is a must-win for Mamelodi Sundowns against MC Alger, because if they get to lose that game, they're not going to qualify for knockout stages, CAF Champions League. If they get to win, they definitely going to qualify. So because they're number 3 in that group. So, and also Ukate also, I think Ukate also Naigum because if he get to lose this game, there's a huge possibility that he might be fired. So I said to one of the people that I was having a conversation with, Ngatsi, it looks like one between Rulani Mukwena and Daniel Kato. So it looks like one of them might not be able to end February. One of them might be jobless before the end of February. Because again, this is also something very interesting. You see, these African clubs, like Moroccans clubs and Algerian clubs, they looking more when they hire a coach. They want to make sure that the coach wins CAF Champions League. CAF Champions League is the most important thing in these clubs and in these countries. So now Uroran Mukwena, because Magashi Uroran Mukwena against Sundowns, it means he has to qualify because Sundowns will get to number 2, then they get to qualify. So now Uroran Mukwena is a must-win game, because if he lose this game, yes, udlala kahle kwi-league, but Champions League is the most important, and I would like to think that they had him because they wanted to win Champions League. So if he get to lose a game against Sundowns, it means so it's going to be a very interesting game. It's going to be a game with high intensity. So it is interesting to actually see what's going to happen. So tell us what you think there. Tell us what you think. Do you think Mamelodi Sundowns is going to win, or do you think maybe MC Algeria will break Sundowns' heart and some of South Africans' people's heart? Tell us about that. That before we get to the end of this, I just want to say a big connotation to Orlando Pirates. Guys, to be honest, Orlando Pirates is playing very well. And I was watching them during the week. I'm like, hey, it's going to be difficult to actually stop Orlando Pirates, because I think right now Orlando Pirates is the best attacking team in the Betway Premiership. They've got amazing attackers. They're doing very well. They score goals. I think they've got amazing creative players. You know, we're looking at players like Tsepang Moremu, who can get something out of nothing. You're looking at Rebule Mufugeng. This is a player that can get something out of nothing. This is you're looking at Osinapolis, a player who can get something out of nothing. Even our players like Mbatha, these are players that can create things for themselves. A player like Mbotuma as well is a striker that can create things for themselves, you know. So a big shout out to Orlando Pirates, and a big shout out to Abdeslam, Coach Wadu. I think is really doing very well there. I mean, you're looking at Orlando Pirates, you see that it's gonna be very hard to stop them. And right now, I think winning the Betway Premiership is on their hands, honestly. They've got difficult games that are coming up. After Marumo Kalan, they've got a game where they need to make sure that they win, which is against Sundowns, and then they still got a game against Chiefs. All these games are happening in February. So I think February is going to be a very difficult time for Orlando Pirates, but it's also going to be a very challenging time. But it's also going to be a time and a moment for them to really show that they are capable of winning the league. Because remember, I did speak about winning league is it's about experience. So Pirates really need now to prove themselves that they're ready to win the league. So February is going to be a difficult time for them, but they need to make sure that they win all the games, so that they at least if they can get to March, knowing that they're at least like 8 point above Chiefs, above Sundowns, then they've a good chance to win the league. So tell us what you think. What do you think? Do you think Pirates is going to win the league, or do you think it's still early? Drop the comment there. And also another interesting thing, I want us to start now looking at the player of the season. I remember in previous episode I did say Osin Apolis for me is my contender for player of the season, and I'm still saying that. Yes, the past 2 games haven't been great for him, but that doesn't determine. I mean, 2 games can't determine that you can't win a player of the season. Also, it's another thing that I was telling to people. Rebule Mufugeng has been playing very well in the past 2 games, but that doesn't determine that he can win player of the season. Because when you're talking about player of the season, we're talking about a form, like a form season younger, not just 2 games, you know. So, but it's interesting to just have that chat to see who's getting into the player of the season chat. We have Lerobole Mufugeng. We have my contender is also Napolis, and also Nuno Santos for Mamelodi Sundowns. Those are 2 players that I've seen so far. I would like to put Marcelo Allende there as well. I think they've been playing very well. With Kaizer Chiefs, I'm still trying to look at who is good. I like Mtutuzi Shabalala. I think Mtutuzi Shabalala is actually doing very well. I think the only thing right now is that he needs to make sure that he scores those goals, so that at least and create those chances. But Mtutuzi Shabalala also can jump into that. And then we've got Tukunika, who are definitely my contender for defender of the season. We've got Sesane from Pirate, who's definitely a contender for for defender of the season. So let's just talk about let's talk about that. Start thinking about that. Who do you think is going to be contender of these awards? Player of the season, defender of the season, goalkeeper of the season, and all those awards. So let's talk about that on the next episode. That's what I wanted to look at. But more than anything, what do you think about this weekend? What do you think about this week? What do you think about CAF Champions League, CAF Confederations Cup, and Betway Premiership? And also, what do you think about the standard of South African football so far? One of the biggest things that we've been talking about is the standard of football in South Africa. For the first time, we have the big three competing for the Betway Premiership. Does that mean that the standard of South African football has grown? What does that mean? But what does it mean that having Sundowns struggling in Champions League, having Pirates got knocked out in Champions League preliminary round, having Chiefs can't go to the Cup, not knowing whether they're going to go all the way to final? What does this say about the standard of South African football, especially because we are going to the World Cup in June? Does this mean that we are ready for World Cup? Does this mean that the standard of football in South Africa has grown? Let's talk about that. Please drop the comment. Let's chat. Let's talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a beautiful time. Please make sure that you subscribe, you like, you comment, and let's engage. Also follow us on our TikTok at iDiski, Waya Waya. Ladies and gentlemen, this is It Is Waya Waya, hosted by your boy King SMS Zwite. Thank you so much for the love. Thank you so much for interacting with us. Please keep on supporting iDiski, Waya Waya. Keep on supporting South African football. Thank you so much. Bye, thank you. See you on the next one. Same time, same place. Thank you, Sabo.